Hello people, welcome back. Let's continue with our chair. Now first of all, I think I can grab all of these and just move them to the side so that we can concentrate on our chair. Now I'm going to just press the Alt+Q to isolate it. I'm going to delete the turbo smooth just to make clear my next example. And let's go to our default shading, and I'm going to apply a simple material to this so that you can see the importance of a proper UVW mapping. Let's open our material editor, and I can actually go ahead and drag this Corona physical material. So in this time, instead of typing in Corona bitmap here, I can just go and right click anywhere in my canvas here. Let's go to maps. Here we have the Corona option. Obviously I want the Corona option. And finally the Corona bitmap is right here. I'm going to look for a wooden texture for my chair. Okay, so here it is. I'm going to open it. And now let's just plug it in into our Corona physical material. Let's right click and assign material to selection. Okay, I'm actually going to make it a bit brighter so that we can see it better. Let's add a Corona color correct. Again, instead of going to search by name, I can go to maps, Corona, and Corona color correct. I think it's a better way to do this as it's a bit more efficient. Now I'm going to add an extra gamma to it to make it a bit lighter. So 1.5. Now for this, we usually go to UVW map on our modifiers. Right now it's set as planar, but let's go to box and let's add the usual dimensions, which is 250 by 250 by 250. So I'm just Control C to copy it and pasting it in the width and the height there. Okay, if we see closely, this is not really wrapping up nicely around my object. Doesn't matter if I rotate it, some of the parts of my chair is going to be a mess. So let's try that. So if I go to my gizmo and with my rotation tool, this mapping in here, it's supposed to be vertical. And this one, it's kind of okay now because it's horizontal. So that makes a bit of sense. But now in this sides here, you can see that something odd is going on. Let's go back to our vertical mode. So now these legs are actually looking pretty good. However, the horizontal railing is in a vertical way. We want this in a horizontal way because we need to follow the proper wooden texture pattern for our object. If an object is vertical, it makes sense to have a vertical mapping around it and vice versa, because that's the way that real life works when creating these wooden chairs. Let's go ahead and look at an example. So here's a good example. We can see that the legs have a vertical mapping to them, while the railings, horizontal railings, have a horizontal mapping. The same thing happens to the sides of the seat. It's horizontal. It makes sense to have it this way. If we go back to our chair, you can see that this is not happening at all. For instance, in our seat, the sides is actually vertical when it should be one single horizontal strip. The same thing happens down here. In this case, this is not going horizontal but vertical. We can see that the UVW mapping is not doing much use here. And even if we go down here, we have the alignment. So if we go to Y, for instance, we can still see some errors in the mapping here. If we go to the X mode, again, some errors in the mapping. Even if we use a triplanar. So let's go ahead and bring in a Corona triplanar. Let's add the Corona color correct to the X input and now to the material. Now we need to add some kind of lighting just to see really quick how our triplanar is working. So let's go to lights, Corona, Corona sun. And this will do for now. Actually our Corona sun, let's go to its modifiers. We know that 1.0 as intensity is way too much. So 0.1 will do. Let's go to render setup, scene, and start interactive. Okay, I know this looks awful, don't worry about it. The proper lighting is not set up. this is why it's looking so unrealistic, but we'll get to it. Now the first thing that we notice is that the triplanar is acting like a UVW modifier in the box mode, so it's not doing the work again. So in order to fix this, it's necessary to add an unwrap UVW modifier. So let's go to unwrap UVW. And the first thing that we notice is these green seams here. Okay, so the unwrap UVW modifier works with seams. However, we're supposed to be adding it ourselves, but the modifier is actually adding some for us. So how do we get rid of this before we even get started? First of all, we have to delete the unwrap UVW modifier. And next up, I'm going to turn this object into an edit mesh. So right click, convert to edit mesh. Now let's go for our utilities tab. Here, I'll find this more option. I'm going to click on it. And down here, I'll find the UVW remove. So again, I want to do it myself. So let's remove it so that we can actually tell it where we want to wrap this. So let's click in OK. And now we are going to be getting some parameters. It's only going to tell us what do you want to remove. We basically just want to remove the UVW mapping and not the actual materials. So let's click on this a couple of times just in case. And now let's go back to our modifiers. And you can see that in my edit mesh doesn't have any UVW assigned to it. So I'm going to right click and convert it back to an edit poly. Again, if I add the usual UVW map, it's going to add it. Okay, but that's not what we want. We want to just delete it. We want to actually use the unwrap modifier. So let's go ahead and add it again. Unwrap UVW map. Okay, so how does this work? Here we have the selection options. Again, just like an editable poly, we can use vertex, edges, or polygons to select some parts of our geometry here. But what are these for? These are for creating seams. So we basically need to unwrap this texture ourselves. So let's go ahead and look at an example. So here we have this box, and you can see how the faces are being wrapped around this geometry. And this is something that you might have seen before at school. So here we are actually just unwrapping this box with the actual faces. This is what we're going to be doing, but with a more advanced model. So the way to see it with the unwrap UVW modifier is that we actually need to tell the software where we want to cut the sides. We can take it as if we're going to be picking some scissors and cutting them to tell the software where we want these sides to be unwrapped. Once we unwrap these surfaces, we can map them correctly. So let's go back to 3ds Max and do it ourselves. Before going into this chair, which is a bit more advanced, we can start with a simple box. And I'm actually going to delete the sun. And let's create a box in our standard primitives. Like so. I'm also going to be adding a wooden texture to this box. I'm going to press the Alt+Q keys, go to my material editor, and assign material to selection. I no longer want this corona triplanar, so let's delete it, bring these two components back, and plug them in like so. Now, because it's a box, it's very easy to map this. This is why this is looking good enough. However, this is not the point of the box. We're going to be analyzing how the UVW modifiers is working. Let's tap and unwrap UVW. Now again, the modifier has already decided where the seams are going to be. So it has basically taken the scissors and cut this box in all of the edges. What if I didn't want to cut this box like so? So first of all, let's go ahead and see how the unwrap UVW has taken the surfaces and split them apart. For this down here, we have the edit UVs. So I'm going to open the UV editor. Okay, so this window will pop up, which is only the UV editor. So in here, we're going to be able to see how the faces are doing, and we are also going to be able to edit them. It's nothing to be afraid of. In this window here, I also have the same tools as in my 3ds Max interface. For example, I have the move, the rotation, and the scaling. I can also select them by going into the vertex option, the edge option, the polygon option, and also the element. Okay, so first of all, I want to select this face because right now they're all packed together in this small square here. So this square that we see, which is a checker pattern, is actually representing the texture mapping. So to make things a bit easier, I'm going to change this checker pattern to our actual texture. So I'm just going to replace this display. I can do this by going up here. We can see that we have the texture checker UVW. So this will change this into this colorful looking display in which we can see how the texture is working. We have the usual checker pattern, so it's actually replacing this so that we can see that all of the UVW mapping is doing, in this case, fine. I can also just turn it into my actual texture, okay, which is map number 2, and it has the corona color correct on it. So this is actually telling me that all of this side here, for example, this face here has this type of UVW mapping. So this is why it's looking like this. So again, all of my faces are packed together here in this box. I'm going to select my polygon selection just to select my faces, and I'm going to press once. This means that inside my UVWs, I'm selecting the top face. I'm actually going to move it. Now I'm going to click the other one and I'm going to press F3 just to see what face I'm selecting. And now my third one, my fourth one, my fifth one, and finally this one here. Now because this modifier has decided to cut in all the sides, each of these faces are actually individual polygons. But what if I didn't want to unwrap this geometry like so? I actually want to unwrap it nicely. For this, we need to start from scratch. So I'm just going to close this and let's delete this. Again, to start from scratch, we have to convert this to an edit mesh. Go to our utilities, head over to the more selection, and down here we'll find the UVW remove. And now I'm going to remove the UVW, so I'm going to just click a couple of times just in case. Back to my modifier tab, right click, convert to edit poly. Okay, again, I've got rid of my UVW map that 3ds Max has played by default. So now I can apply it and decide for myself where I want these sections to be. So how do we create seams? How do we tell it where we want to cut these surfaces so that we can see it in the UV editor display? Well, first of all, I can do this by using the vertex tool or the edge tool. So obviously, because I want to cut it in the edges, I'm going to use the edges. I'm going to activate my edges by pressing F4, and now I'm going to tell it that I actually want to cut this, and you can see that the selection goes in a red mode. And in a moment, we're going to see how we can actually cut this. Right now, we're just adding provisional seams, if you will. And now I'm just going to cut it at the top like so. Notice that I haven't touched any edges from my base because I actually don't want to explode the surface. In this case, it's not necessary to do that. I could actually just cut all of the edges off, but just for you to know how the Unwrap UVW works. Now, once I've selected this, I need to go all the way down here to the peel option. So now I'm going to peel the surface. It makes sense. Down here, I can see that we have the convert edge selection to seams. Pretty straightforward, right? So I've selected all of these provisional seams, if you will, and now I want to convert my selections to actual seams. So I'm just going to click it once, and now you notice that from my red selection, it has gone into a bluish selection. And now that I think about it, I've actually made a mistake here. This top surface will actually break because I've actually cut it in the 4 sides. So let's just Ctrl Z, and before converting this selection into actual seams, I'm going to deselect this. Now again, it's the same way as in 3ds Max. We can just press the Alt key and unselect this seam. Okay, now let's go back and tell it that now my selection is ready, and I'm going to convert the edge selection to seams, like so. I now need to tell it that now with my seams ready, now I want to peel it. So up here we have the quick peel method. I'm going to just peel it, and now you can see that immediately my edit UVWs pops up, and you can see how nicely my geometry has been peeled. Now we don't have 6 individual surfaces, but just one of them, which has been unwrapped nicely by ourselves, using the seams that we actually wanted to use. not by the ones that the Unwrap UVW modifier gave us by default. So if I want to select the whole object here, I can go to the polygon selection. Now you notice that I can select all of the faces like so. But if I want to select the whole element, I'll press also the element option. So I'm just going to place it over here. Another thing to notice, now I'm going to press my F2 just to see through my whole element selection, is that my UVW mapping or my textures are a mess. And this is because this is actually looking diagonally. So let's change this from checker pattern to the Corona color correct. So again, notice that my wooden texture is actually in a vertical way and we have our selection in a diagonal way. So we can either align it using these options up here, which says quick transform. Okay, pretty straightforward. Again, we want to just transform it using rotation or aligning, or we can rotate it ourselves. Now, when our geometry is a complex one, we should get used to selecting the align options. Okay, so let's use the align to edge option. Now let's go ahead and pick an edge then. I'm going to pick this one and notice that because I'm still selecting by element, it's selecting all my whole object. So I have to unselect this so that it lets me pick only the edges. I'm going to double click and it's going to actually follow all of the edge here. Now my align to edge has been enabled. So I'm just going to click it once and now notice that my whole geometry has been aligned horizontally. Now let's make sure that the snap toggle for the angles is turned off. Let's try that again. Now it works perfectly. Now we have to be careful that all of our unwrap faces here are inside our box. So this is not there just as reference. We actually need to make sure that all of our geometries are inside this box. It's important to do this because we have to pack all of these textures inside our actual material here. So the better they are packed, the more quality our texture is going to have. So how do we pack this? We need to go down here where it says arrange elements. Now because I'm selecting the whole object, I can go to pack custom. If I wasn't selecting all of the objects, we would just use the pack normalize. So I'm just going to click it once and the software will do it for me. It's gonna pack nicely all of my surfaces here on my texture. Now some of them are actually not facing the right way. Now what if I want all of the faces to be facing the right direction? I would actually have to split some of these faces and rotate them manually. So first of all, we have this one over here. I don't want it to be in this horizontal way. What if I just wanted it to be as this side over here, which is vertical? Well, it's fairly easy. I only have to add a seam or just grab my scissors, if you will, and cut this face and then rotate it. So I can either go here into my actual 3ds Max interface, or I could do it inside the Edit UVW's options. Let's go ahead and select the edge, and I'm going to select this one. And now what I want to do is just to right click and break it. This way I've broken this connection, or I've actually cut this edge here and made a new face. Let's select the object by going into our polygon. This one was my actual face. Okay, so still this face is actually attached to the base. So again, I want to cut it through here. Let's go ahead and pick the edge, right click and break it. Now let's pick this polygon like so. And with my transform tools up here, I can just rotate it 90 degrees. It's not going to update. That's just a display bug. What I can do is just unselect the polygon and it will immediately update. I want all of these surfaces to be well packed so that I can actually create a higher texture quality. For that, I'm going to select all of my polygons and head over to pack normalize. So now the software is doing its best to try and occupy all of the texture here, which is brilliant. So that would be it for this box. Now that we've done with this method, let's check out another one. So I'm just going to close this and let's actually copy this box, delete our modifier, and apply another one. Unwrap UVW again. Down here in our peel mode, there's something new that just came out for 3ds Max. So now the unwrapping of geometry is not as hard as it used to be. Before, it used to take a long time just to unwrap all of our models. But as time goes on, 3ds Max keeps updating this, and it's making it easier for us too. So we know what the quick peel does. So it's basically just helping us map our surfaces after we've selected the seams. Now this next option is called peel mode, and it's actually an interactive mode in which we can see how our geometry is being unwrapped as we cut it with the edges tool. Let's just select this peel mode. And all of my faces are right here. So if I go and select my polygons, all of my faces are actually stuck together because I haven't created any seams. Now in this interactive mode, if I go up here and select my edge, it's going to automatically, in an interactive way, show me how my geometry is being unwrapped. And just before we get started, I must say that once we select one of the seams, we can't actually go back, not even with Ctrl Z. So this is the downside from using the peel mode. But as we move along, we're going to see several methods that we can use with it. For the moment, I'm going to start cutting this geometry. So I'm going to select this side here, then this side over here, and keep in mind that you don't have to press the Ctrl key. I'm just cutting this geometry through. Okay, now it's very hard to see what's going on. So I'm going to go down here to my arrange elements and pack normalize. All right, now I see what's going on. I've just cut one face from our box and it has appeared individually here. So you see how peel mode works. It's an interactive way, again, of seeing what I'm actually cutting. So let's go ahead and cut this face now. I'm going to just cut these 3 edges here and again pack normalize. Now I have these 2 faces and there are 4 to go. Now I'm going to cut it through here, pack normalize. Now I have 3 sides and so on. So this is the peeling method, and it's actually a fun one to do because we can see in real time how we're actually cutting all of these. Okay, so now I'm just going to pack them, and there I've cut all of my edges and ended up with 6 faces. Now what I need to do is just to align them again. So make sure that you have your snaps off. I'm going to align them with my edge selection. But before that, let's go down here and unselect my peeling mode so that we no longer use the edges to peel anything else. We've done cutting edges. Don't forget to disable your peeling mode. Okay, now I'm going to select this edge and align to edge. And I'm going to do this for all of them. Just to align them properly here. Now I'm going to turn this check pattern to my actual texture. And once I'm done aligning all of them, I'm going to pack normalize again, so that the software itself will rescale all of my surfaces and try to pack them as good as possible inside my texture. Okay people, so that's it for this lecture. Make sure to just have a look at it yourself, practice with your own box so that you can get a bit more familiar with the Edit UVW's interface. Now there's certain tools that we haven't seen yet, but we're going to be seeing them as we go along. We're done unwrapping our textures from our box. Now it's time to move on to our more advanced model, which is the chair that we just did. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you soon.